Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Rabi Mahmood and welcome back to lecture number 6. Before this, we have discussed the families of languages, and today we are going to start with the prehistory of languages. Let's see that how this prehistory or the background of language has contributed towards the growth and the development of language with the passage of time. Before we move on to the details and the context of the history, you need to just look at this slide and try to study the following text. Yes, perhaps there are a few words only that you can trace, and then you can read. A few of these words are there is one word in the first line that is on. Then in the second line is nama, and perhaps it stands for the name. Then one word in the third line that is to, and then we can also read the next word that is become. Then there is rise. Villa perhaps stands for will, and then in the next line there is on, again on. There is a word HLAF, perhaps it stands for something else. There is then another word that we can read is that us, to. Then another word that we can read is and it is with the same spellings that we are doing these days. And then the next word is us. And then another word, yes, this is we. And then another word is again and, us, on, of, and us. You have not, what is this? Can you please guess that what language is this? You would be really amazed to know that this is a form of English language. This is what is known as Old English language that was seen in the primitive eras, that was written, that was recorded, and that was reported later on in the olden eras. Let's move on to the next slide and see. You might be surprised to see that they discovered that this is actually English, but actually the problem is that you are worried that this is the English and this is not the English of the present day, because the English that we have been studying, that we have been looking at, is quite a different one. But Old English, which was spoken between 700 and 1100 AD, now take a look at the following text of the same passage but in a different modern day language. Yes, this is just to tell you know that the text that you have just seen, this text, this is an example of the Old English language that existed in 700 and 1100 AD, in the era of this thing. So let's look at another text and see whether there is a difference in that language or not. Yes, look at this text and let's try to find out if there is some another word that we can trace in it. Yes, in the first line perhaps we don't find any word. In the third line we see till, and then in the next upcoming lines perhaps again we don't trace any of the things. This is helder. Yes. And the thing is that we were saying that this is again another type of English that is found, another type of English language that is found in the primitive eras. We are not going to look into the scripts only, rather we are going to study a lot many things that existed in the prehistory, or that all of the things that contributed towards the growth and the development of today's English. let's see that what are the similarities and the differences in these two texts that you have just seen. The purpose of this compendium is to give you a brief outline of the brief history of English language. And knowledge of the history of English will give you a better insight into the grammar and the phonetics of modern English, and explain the strange makeup of its vocabulary. Yes, actually the main purpose is to do this thing. It's a knowledge of history of English will give you a better insight into the grammar. The first focus or the first insight would be on that of grammar, and the second would be on that of phonetics of modern English, and explain the strange makeup of its vocabulary. Yes, we are going this by looking at these two texts, we see that there is the difference in the language that we have noticed up till now. In the primitive eras, in the olden times, the English that was spoken was not really is not the same. This is not the same that we are studying these days. There is a huge difference. There is a great difference in these two texts that we have seen. Even in the text 2 is not the same modern English that we are studying. It is quite a different shape. This is just to give you an idea that how phonology means the sounds, and how the grammar, the grammatical structure of the words of the sentences has changed over the period of time. And in addition, a study of how historical events have affected the English language will highlight many of the sociolinguistic principles that we discuss on this course. Yes, it is going to do another thing. It is going to add to your knowledge not only the physical, not only the apparent properties of the language, rather it is going to look at the sociolinguistic principles that govern the behaviors of the language. Sociolinguistic principles, we say that sociolinguistics is a study of language in relation to society. Yes, while we talk about the society, when we talk about the language, and that when we see that how language is making some effects on some certain parts of the things, then we see that we are studying sociolinguistics. Definitely, then what this comparison is going to tell you? This comparison is basically telling you about the society and the cultures where this English had developed. Yes, it is going to tell you in detail that how the present day English has emerged out of the English, although that was the same English, but still, as you have noticed, apart from the 1/10 words, we could not understand the whole of the text. Yes. Let's start with the most primitive era that existed in the prehistory of English language. Prehistory is actually, we are discussing it, this is the background, this is a context of the overall things, of the overall historical eras that are going to come ahead. So it was necessary to give you a background that how English has emerged out of that thing. Proto IndoEuropeans. Yes, scholars agree that original group of people that spoke Proto IndoEuropean, the language which would later split into a number of branches, including the Germanic branch. They lived somewhere between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea some 6,000 years ago. So the prehistory, the important point to note here is that the prehistory actually started 6,000 years ago. We have not directly jumped into exactly the history, that started with the Old English or the primitive Old English period. Rather, before jumping onto that and before looking onto that Old English period, we have started looking that how actually these things started, what were the factors, what were the influences that were there, and then they caused the emergence of English. So we see the first fact that comes to us is that it started 6,000 years ago. It's long ago. There are the two definitions of Indo-European. Indo-European refers to the hypothetical language spoken by a society that probably lived around the Ural Mountains between 5000 and 3500 BC. It's actually the approximate, as nobody knows that whether it was exact 6,000, whether it was exact 6,000 years or the 5,000 or the 3,500, nobody knows it. It is just a rough estimate that it started. They lived there, they remained there between 3,500 and as well as between 6,000 BC. When referring to this or any hypothetical language, linguists use the prefix proto. Hence, the technical term for the language is Proto IndoEuropean. Yes. You would be getting amazed that why most of the time we have been using this prefix that is known as proto. Why? Because this was actually suggested by the linguist. The linguists are the people who are proficient, who are good in semantics. Linguists are the people who are knowledgeable in the field of language, who knows the language. It is actually a misconception. The linguists are the people who knows so many languages. No, this is wrong. Actually, the correct expression is that linguists are those people who are expert, proficient, who can and who have been carrying out the studies in the scientific studies in the field of linguistics. Yes. So, and we have got to know another thing, that linguists they preferred to use one prefix with this Indo-European tree, and this was Proto-Indo-European. That's why it would be repeated time and again. Sometimes it would be called it Indo-European languages, and sometimes it would be regarded as Proto-Indo-European. Yes. The theory is that many of our languages today were once dialects of this mother tongue. The existence of Indo-European accounts for the similarity of the words in such languages as French, German, Czech, Lithuanian, Norwegian and Persian and etc. Yes. What is the main theory? Why are we discussing this Proto-Indo-European period? Why? Because the reason is that it is a myth. It is perhaps a theory. It is a hypothetical framework that it has been said that many of our languages today were once the dialects of this mother tongue. Yes. It's not actually, the word is not all the languages. Rather, we say that the most of the languages that are being spoken in today's world, they were one of the dialects of this mother tongue. Yes, dialects, as I told you earlier, rather I would be giving you another separate lecture on different varieties of the language, so that you might not get confused with the different ideas that come across again and again in this period. So we were actually talking about the dialects, and I was saying you that dialects is a regional variety of the language. The existence of Indo-European accounts for the similarity of words in such languages. They say all the languages have been almost the emphasis on almost, that all the languages have emerged out of the one mother tongue. One mother tongue was further splitted, further divided into different things, and this is what we have already actually discussed so much in detail. Perhaps we don't need to go into that much detail again. Yes, the second point is that Indo-European refers also to those languages which once were dialects of the language described above and which cover a large part of Europe and a part of Asia. Yes, these we say the Proto-Indo-European. Actually, Indo refers to the Asiatic part of the world, and Europe refers to the European part of the world, the European territory. Actually, these were the languages, the Proto-Indo-Europeans, that were spoken over a major part of the Europe as well as a little part of the Asia. That's why these are known as Proto-Indo-Europeans. And proto is only a prefix that you just need to keep in mind. There are the three words in this definition, and I hope that you are getting clear. The first one is Proto, Indo, and the second is European. Yes, proto, as I told you earlier, that this is just a prefix, and this prefix is given by the linguist to this word. Indo, in the word, it refers to Asia, Asian part of the world, Asian region of the world, and European, it refers to European region, to the European countries. So we say that Proto-Indo-European is a family of languages that was spoken over this part. The first theory about this, that it is thought, it is considered that they all of them have stemmed out from the same mother tongue, and then when they were stemmed out and they were spoken, and they were divided and subdivided into many categories. Yes, a simplified Indo-European family tree would be this one. Proto-Indo-European is basically divided into the two main categories. The first one is Satem and the other is Centum. Satem is divided into the four main branches, and these are Indo-Iranian, Armenian, Albanian, Balto-Slavic. The second is Centum. Centum is divided into Anatolian, Hellenic, Italic, Celtic, and Germanic. This is just a simplified tree of Proto-Indo-European family of languages. This is just a kind of recap. This is I'm just telling you just for the sake of recap, so that you can have a clearer idea of the things. Most scholars believe that this population then expanded or migrated eastward, westward, and northward, and thereby came to inhabit most of the Europe and parts of the Western Asia. Yes, the people who were living there 6,000 years ago, what happened? They believed that this population then expanded. They started expanding into the different parts. Where did they extend it? The first part was that of eastward. They moved towards the eastward, they expanded, and then they migrated. And then another part was that of westward, then they moved towards the west, and then another part was that of northward. They moved in these three directions, and thereby came to inhabit most of the Europe and parts of the Western Asia. Then they started living in the European parts of the world, and as well as the Asian parts of the world. This is how they started getting expanded, and they started getting migrated, perhaps to share, to live into as many places as they can, so that they can have an expansion of language over there. Look at that how they started. Look at the picture very, very carefully and see that how they started getting diffused. This is shown in the red color in the picture. Look that how they started. Actually, they have starting diffusing this way. Their diffusion of early Indo-European dialects. It moved this on the right side. It moved towards Iran. It moved towards Persian Gulf. Mesopotamia, it moves over there. Then there were some also some other places as well. It moves toward Doric, it moves towards Black Sea to Danube. These were some of the places where they used to be. Actually, there is another important thing that is there, that is shown in the green color, and this is this one, posited homeland. This was basically the homeland where they were basically staying before diffusion, but the moment they started expanding and the moment they started getting migrated, they diffused to so many of the areas. You can see it is spreaded almost all over the world. A larger part has been covered is that of the Europe, whereas a smaller part that is covered is that of the Asia side. We can learn about the earliest Indo-Europeans from the aspects of their reconstructed vocabulary. Now there are the things they diffused, so there were certain things that started getting changed. What happened? Actually, the first important thing was that we got to know about this earliest Indo-European people because of their reconstructed vocabulary items. What was that? We are going to look into detail later on. Some words, for example, describe an agricultural technology whose existence dates back to 5000 BC. Yes, the Indo-European words of barley, wheat, flax, apples, cherries, grapes, wines, meats and beer, and the words for the various implements with which to cultivate, harvest and produce these products describe a way of life unknown in the northern Europe until the 3rd or the 2nd millennium BC. Yes, this was a big achievement. This was a big change in them. Actually, we are talking about the reconstructed vocabulary that these Indo-Europeans did, that they introduced. We say that some words, the words regarding agricultural technology, the main thing is this agricultural technology whose existence dates back to 5000 BC. Actually, they were talking about that, and they said they had got a range of vocabulary regarding this agricultural technology, and you could look at very clearly at this vocabulary. For example, the word barley, wheat, flax, apples, cherries, grapes, wines, meat and beer, and words for the various implements with which to cultivate, and again some other words, cultivate, harvest and produce. These are the words that are interrelated to one thing, and that is what? Agricultural technology. And we see these products describe a way of life unknown in the northern Europe. This was a life that was unknown in the northern Europe. It was not known there till the 2nd or the 3rd millennium, till 2nd or the 3rd century BC. We found these instances so long ago, but we do not found these instances very recently. Yes, reconstructed vocabulary also tells us much about the climate and the geography of the region. Yes, firstly, it tells all the words that are talking about one thing, so it means that they are telling us about one specific field. And what was that field? That field was basically about that how this agricultural technology can be used or employed, and all the words that were related to cultivation. So it tells us that there would have been something, there might have been something that was related to agricultural technology, because they were aware of these terms, they have used it, it is recorded in their writing, it is recorded in their language. Then reconstructed vocabulary not only tells us about that thing, but it also tells us about the climate and geography of the region where the Proto Indo-Europeans have lived. Such words include Word meanings, for example, winter, snow, birch, beech, pine, wolf, salmon, bear, and otter, and seem to suggest a northerly temperate climate. So true that what does it suggest? It suggests this northerly temperate climate is suggest, because language is not a simple thing that is just written and we don't get any idea. Language is basically, if we look at it in detail, if we analyze it in the scientific terms, we get to know that how many ideas and how many things are associated with one thing, that how many things are there, how many concepts are associated with the one major concept. Now what happened actually, when we say that we have found such a range of the variety of the verbs or the lexical items that are related to agricultural technology, we got to know, yes, this agricultural technology was there in that era. It existed. It was used perhaps maybe as a profession or as anything. And the second thing that we are talking about, the vocabulary, this vocabulary also tells about the climate and the geographical situations. The climate, what does it tell? It tells that winter. It means there must have been a winter season. The snow used to fall. So they have these words. The birch, beech, pine, all these things refers to the spring season. And perhaps, yes, we see that there were, although there might not be the clear-cut divisions of the things and the clear-cut vocabulary and the very advanced vocabulary, perhaps they won't be having, yet we have found and discovered these words. And we see, yes, that these are found over there. And some other words like bear and otter, and these seem to suggest a northerly temperate climate. Yes, winter and winter as well as the spring, the birch, all these things, these suggest that there was a temperate climate, there was a moderate climate. Although has all the shapes, the season were there, yet it has temperate. Yes, let's talk more about language reconstruction and change and cognates. Firstly, let's see that what are these cognates and how these cognates have helped us or brought some kind of changes in this English language in the prehistorical period. How they then can we say that anything about a language which existed more than 6,000 years ago, before the time of the written language? Yes, another very important question, as well as a very important fact, that on one hand we are saying that this language existed there 6,000 years ago, and you could perhaps imagine that what could be there in those eras. Would there be anything to write it down, or would there be anything to make a sense, would there be anything to make a record? No, there might not be anything to make a record of it. So what was done actually, it was done, it says, perhaps we can't guess that what was done. How do we know that these words actually existed 6,000 years ago, when there was no writing? Perhaps when there were no things to write. Let's see that what happens. The answer comes from the study of the so-called cognates, words of the common origin in different languages. Yes, this seems quite a rationalistic answer, and the answer is, we say, the answer comes from the study of the so-called cognates. We say that we can analyze and we can say, we can conclude that all these things happened just because of the cognates. Now, what are these cognates? Yes, these cognates are described in this way. These are the words of common origin in different languages. Words of common origin, all the words that have originated from the same one stem of the same in different languages. The languages might be different, but perhaps they are having the same words, and the words are originated from the same origin. This is known as the cognates. These words often resemble each other. And differences that exist between languages tend to be systematic. More about this later. We are going to discuss it about like a little later about the systematic being, but the main focus is on these words often resemble each other, while we are saying that cognates are the words of the common origin, the different languages, but the words that have originated, they are from the same common source, and these words often resemble each other, and differences that exist between languages tend to be systematic. The differences have been very systematic, and it was also seen later on, but yet we see that they resemble each other because they are from the same origin. The things that are from the same origin, definitely they are going to resemble with each other. Yes, look at this slide. I have given a comparative analysis of different languages, and we'll see that how different words, whether they resemble or not, whether they are cognates. Let's look at that. Let's start from the right side. The right side, it refers to English. English, Gothic, Latin, Greek, Western and Sanskrit. These are the different languages. The first word that I have traced in English is that of father, and I see that it is there in Gothic language, it is father. In Latin language it is pater. In Greek language it is pater. The same in a Western language we do not found any equal representation of the same word, and in Sanskrit it's pita. Yes, then we come to the second word, that is foot in English. In Gothic language it is regarded as fotu. In Latin it is padum. In Greek it's poda, and in Sanskrit it's padum, with a and with the difference of the spellings. Yes, in English language the word is that of brother. In Gothic language it's brother. In Latin language it is frater. In Greek language it is praetor, and in Sanskrit it is bharatar. It has got a little bit of similarity, although like they are perhaps being from the same origin, they have got a little bit of similarity, not all. Yes, the next word is beer. In Gothic language it is baira. In Latin language it is phero. In Greek language it is phero. In Western it is brahmi. In Sanskrit it is bharami. Yes, again a little bit close. Yes, var or wolf in English, whereas we use one word for in Gothic, that is vire. In Latin it's vir. In Greek language we don't found any equivalent. Then in Western we find viro. In Sanskrit we find vira. Okay, the next word that we found in English is that tree. In Gothic we call it tree. It is in English with double E, and in Gothic it's I. Then in Latin it is tres, and in Greek it's tris. Yes. Next is in English we found the word tan. In Gothic it's tihon. In Latin it's decam. In Greek it's deca. And we don't found any equivalent of these words in Western or Sanskrit languages. The next is English. Within English we found the word 100. We found this in Gothic as well, and we see it is hundrat. In Latin it is centrum. In Greek it's hecaton. Again in Western it is septem. Perhaps this thing reminds you of something. Let's try to trace some similarities. Let's see if some of the languages are same or not. While I see the words in English, that is father, I see it almost the same in father and father. I see it almost the same in Greek in language, that is Peter and Peter. Next is foot or the photo, again quite similar one, whereas we see the similarity between Latin as well as in Sanskrit language. Then we found another similarity in English and Gothic. This is brother and brother, and we see then perhaps we found no similarity or a little similarity, bharatar or bharatar. A little similarity is found in these two words in Greek and Sanskrit. Yes, beer and Baira, again the two similar. Pharaoh and Pharaoh, the two more similar. And then Brahmi and Brahmi, another two languages more similar one. Now were and where and were, again the similarity between English and Gothic. Veer and Viro and Veera, then the rest of the three are interlinked. I would say they are similar to each other. Yes, Veer, Viro, Veera, with a little variation of perhaps Viro with the vowel sound. We call it Viro. It's Veera, just with a little variation of sound, another vowel, the addition of another vowel. We found it. Then let's see, is there any similarity between the next word? Yes, the three in English and three is in Gothic. There is the morphological difference between the two. The words spellings are changed. It is THREE, tree in English, and it's THRI, tree in Gothic. Yes. Then another similarity is found in tris and tress. Just a difference of one vowel. It's tris and tress. E and A. Actually, the difference of vowel only. The rest of the things are almost the same in Latin and Greek language. Yes. Then we found perhaps no similarity in Stan, Tyhon, Dicam and Dica. A little, we can say these are a little similar to each other, and these two perhaps a little more similar to each other. Then the last one, that is hundred and hundredth, is once again very much similar. Centrum, setum, hecaton, again no similarity is found. So the results of this thing shows that while we were talking about cognates, we said that cognates are those words that originated from the same common origin, from the same common source. Although they are found in different languages, yet they would have a little of the similarity, and we got to know the words of those things from those similar things. Yes, as we have looked at the comparative analysis of English, Gothic, Latin, Greek, Western, Sanskrit, and we have found out that there is a lot of similarity between English and Gothic language. Almost all the words that we have gone through are almost the same that are also found in Gothic. And then there is also a good similarity is found between Latin and Greek languages. We found almost 3 to 4% of the words that are not absolutely same. Otherwise, most of the things were again a lot of same to each other. Then a little more similarity is found between Avestan and Sanskrit language. This is how, although the meanings being the same, rather the words are being changed in different languages, rather they stand for the same meanings. Let's say that how systematic sound changes in the cognates. Cognates also reveal systematic sound changes that have occurred as new languages have emerged. Fine. This is not going to look only at the physical shape of the words and the things, rather it would also pay its emphasis, it would also pay its focus on different things. One such famous sound shift is Grimm's law. Yes, they have said that in cognates the words changes, the sound changes, and the one such famous sound shift is Grimm's law. By comparing Germanic languages with the Latin languages, Jacob Grimm was able to show that the following systematic changes of the plosive consonants has taken place at some point in the history. Yes, actually Grimm's law was given by Jacob Grimm, and he has been carrying out research on the sound system of speech, and he found that that some changes have taken place. Actually, while we have talked about consonants, and while we have talked about phonetics in our previous lectures, the phonetics would also discuss with the manners and the places of the speech sounds from where they are produced, the places and the manners of speech sounds. Now plosives is actually, it's a manner of the speech sounds. They say that these plosives are produced by the use of the two lips, and when the air closes and then it releases, there is a puff of the air, and it is known as plosives. While we talk about the plosive consonants, he said that he noticed that the p consonant p, it has been changed into f. For example, ped into foot, pisk into fish, pater into father, pyro into fire. These are different changes that have taken place in the consonantal plosives. Then the second t sound, it has changed into th sound. Th. This is th sound. The t sound has changed into th sound. For example, truss has been changed into three, two has been changed into thou, frater has been changed into brother, th, brother, th. These are the different sounds that have changed. The next he said that Grimm pointed out is that he said k has been changed with h sound, cantum with 100, cord with the heart, cannabis with the hemp, canard with the henna, corno with the horn. These are different changes that have taken place. The next example was that of d sound. D, that is plosive, that is consonant. D sound has changed into t, dent into tooth, do into two, decam into 10. Yes. Then the word g sound has been changed into k sound. G has been changed into k. For example, the word ginu, it has changed into neen, genus into kin, galidus into cold. These were some systematic sound changes that were traced in cognates. There were some reasons that were also given about the sound change. Indo-European languages were influenced by the sound patterns of others. Older European languages as the tribes moved into the parts of the Europe and mixed with the native populations. Yes, they were also influenced by the sound patterns of others. These were not only the sound patterns of that were traced through the cognates, but some other languages, some olden European languages, as the tribes moved into the new parts. There were some, as you know, the tribes were coming on, the expansion was taking place, and so many things were being done at the time. So what happened actually, it was, the language was being influenced, continuously influenced by different things. Such effects are known as substratum effects, where one language is systematically influenced by the languages of a subjugated group. Yes, this is very, very important point. Substratum effects, where one language is systematically influenced by the language of a subjugated group. There is one subjugated group and it is going to influence on the other language very silently, without any notice and without anything. It is going to bring a change in a very, very systematic and organized way. So it is influenced by the language of a subjugated group. Similar language phenomena, it exists today, and one example is how Swedish pronunciation is being influenced by the immigrant group in the suburbs such as Rinkeby. Yes, definitely there are the people are living at one place. When some trade starts, when some expansion starts, the people start going out, meeting others, start interacting with others. Now what happens actually, when they are interacting with others, they are speaking not only their own language, rather they are listening to others, they are being exposed to others. When they are being exposed to others, their language is going to make some influence on them. Yes, this is a very good example is given by as the Swedish pronunciation, as the actual pronunciation of Sweden is being influenced by some immigrant groups who have been staying there, who have become the natives right now, but perhaps they are influencing the actual Swedish pronunciation, and this is how the things change. And one day would come, perhaps after years and years, when the Swedish has totally changed into the language of that immigrant group. Yes, now comes a little discussion on Germanic. We already had the idea that English is actually a part of this branch of language, and that's why we were very much interested in this field, and we are looking at that how English belongs to the Germanic branch of the Indo-European languages. This group began as a common language in the Elbe River in about 3000 years ago. Before this, we have talked about the people who have been living there 6000 years ago, but with the Germanic, it's almost 3000 years have already gone. Now we are coming to the people to talk about the people who were staying there, who were living there in the Elbe River in about 3000 years ago. Around the 2nd century BC, this common Germanic language split into 3 distinct subgroups. As the different languages are being influenced, same was the case with the Germanic. It was actually subdivided into the 3 main groups. This is a beautiful family tree of Germanic language. We see that these 3 groups are, one is the West group, the second is the East group, and the third is the North group. Yes, the East group is further divided into just one language, and that is Gothic. That's why perhaps we see that there are so many similarities that we have just traced out between the actual language, that is English, as well as in the Gothic. We have traced so many similarities in their cognates. Then when we come to West, we see there are two kind of things. The one is high language, and the other was low language. High language is the old High German, and this is modern German as well, whereas low, this is, you need to look at the West-Germanic family tree on the next page. It is also given. The high and the low are perhaps, these are the two varieties of the languages that existed at that time regarding Germanic family tree. Then when we come to the North, we see that North is divided into Old Norse period, and the Old Norse is further divided into West Norse and the East Norse. West Norse is divided into the following languages. The first into the two languages, and those are Icelandic, Norwegian. East Norse are Danish language and the Swedish language. Yes, this is all Germanic family tree, and let's discuss it in detail. The East Germanic was spoken by the peoples who migrated back to the southeastern Europe. Definitely East, if we are talking about East Germanic, it means that we are talking about the group who has migrated to the southeastern Europe. No East Germanic language is spoken today, and the only written text Germanic language that survives is the Gothic. Yes, no other languages is existed. Perhaps they have extinct, they have extincted, they have changed, or they have reformed their shape, and now the final shape that we have got is that of Gothic. The next is North Germanic. North Germanic evolved into the modern Scandinavian languages of Swedish and Danish, Norwegian and Icelandic, but not Finnish, which is related to the Estonian and is not an Indo-European language. Yes, West Germanic is it developed into the modern Scandinavian languages. Scandinavian languages are those languages that are spoken into Scandinavian countries. For example, the Swedish, Danish, Norwegian and Icelandic. Yes, the West Germanic is ancestor of modern German, Dutch, Flemish, Frisian and English. Yes, West Germanic is basically the Germanic that we say is a high variety of the Germanic, and from that English has emerged. Let's look at some similar vocabulary that we see that can be there in English, Dutch and German. The first is that of house. In Dutch the spellings are H-Huis, H-U-I-S. In German it's Haus, H-A-U-S. In English it's drink, in Dutch it's drinken, in German it's trinken. In English the word is out, in Dutch it uit, U-I-T, uit. In German it's aus, A-U-S, aus. In English the word is two, in Dutch it is twee, in German is zwei. In English the word is good, in Dutch it's good, G-O-E-D. Then in German it's gut. The D has been changed with the T sound. Then in English the word is forget, in Dutch it's vergeten, and in German it's vergessen. It is, these two are similar, whereas the word that we use in forget is quite a different one. Buy, the word buy, it is used in Dutch as kopen and in German as kaufen. In English the word is write, and in Dutch it's schrijven, and in German it's schreiben. The sound is b and the sound over there is j. So the things, you know, that we have traced out some of the similar vocabulary and the similar uses of the words. Yes, it is there. Drink, drank, drunk, you know, these are the three forms in English. Same is the case with the Dutch. Let's see that how do they do it. Drink they would call drinken, drank drank, and then drunk they would say get drunken. Yes, it is quite interesting to know. Yes, then in German the first form of the verb drink is known as trinken, the second is trank, and the third is getrunken. Then a few other forms of the verbs. For example, come, came, come in English. It's common in Dutch. It's kom, it's Dutch. And then is gekommen is the third form. Again, in German, it's kommen, kam, and gekommen. Today we are getting to know that how there are really the similarities all in the spellings, in the sounds of these words, and we are realizing and we are understanding that they have really emerged from the same origin. They are from the same Proto IndoEuropean family of languages. Yes, they have got the same ancestors, and these are the descendants of the same thing. Let's look at one sentence. In English, the sentence is I have eaten. In Dutch, ik heb gegeten. In German, ich habe gegessen. Yes, these are, perhaps I might not be that much good, perhaps I might not be good in Dutch and German accent, but this is just for the sake of understanding that these are the similarities and the differences that we have seen in the uses of some words in these languages. So just how Germanic are we? Let's see, we are saying that we means we being the descendants of the English language. Let's see that how Germanic we are. English, Dutch, German and French. Another language has come up now, and we are trying to make a comparison between all these languages. The word decide in English. In Dutch, it's besluiten. In German, beschließen. In French, is decider. In English, it's develop. In Dutch, ontwikkelen, and German, entwikkelen, and in French, developer. In English, it's possible. In Dutch, it's mogelijk. In German, it's mogelijk, and in French, it's possible. Look, we have got exactly the similar word that is possible in French and possible in English. We've got the next word, that is society. In Dutch, it's Gezelschap, and then in German, in Gesellschaft, and in French, it's society. Then in environment in English. In Dutch, it's omgeving. It's German, Umwelt, and it's environment. Perhaps definitely it would be pronounced in some other way in the French. Yet while we look at the spelling structure, we get to know that there are really very much similarities in the spelling structure of English as well as the spelling structure of French. So we can say that we are coming from the same descendant, we are coming from the same traditions from where this English came. Similarities in English and Germanic. Why is English a Germanic language? Number one, it has got large Germanic vocabulary. Number two, dental past tense verbs are there as they used to be in some other languages. There are fixed syllable stresses. Then the two tense verb system, present and past, and no synthetic future tense, that was there in Germanic. So we say that these are the similarities. Then Grimm's and Vernon's law is another similarity that we find out. Dental suffix in English unique to Germanic branch of Indo-European languages are, for example, talked, bragged, boasted. The past participle that we add ed. Ed is the past participle that we add in the language, and new verbs in English add ed, add. I spammed the list. All these come under the dental suffix. Actually, why is it dental suffix? Dental is dental are those sounds that are pronounced with the use of the tooth teeth, with the use of your teeth. For example, Togged. Togged. Towards the end of the word, we will close our teeth, our jaws, and then we pronounce it togged. Yes, it's bragged, it's boasted. Again, the ending of the word, ending of all the words that is on ed, it is a dental suffix, and this is a unique quality of the Germanic branch of Indo-European language. Then comes Grimm's law. Grimm's law actually it talks about voiced stops becomes voiceless stops. Voiced that creates some vibration in your vocal cords. For example, b, d, g. While you pronounce these words, there is a variation into your vocal cords. These have become voiceless stops in it, and it has become p, t, and k. There is no vibration in the vocal cords. The second is voiceless stops like p, t, k becomes voiceless fricatives. Fricatives are those words when they are pronounced, they releases a friction in the airflow. For example, the word f, we first releases the air, and then we pronounce the sound, that is f. This is friction, these are fricatives. And then when we say th, 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 it is pronounced again with the friction, so it becomes th. And then ha, although it's coming from a glottal stop from your glottis, again still it's a fricative because it is pronounced with the friction of air. For example, ha, the word ha. Okay, there were some other changes, other things that were described by Grimm's law. For example, voiceless fricatives, f, th, h, they become voiced stops, b, d, g. While you pronounce these words, you would see there's a clear-cut vibration into your throat. For example, put a hand on your throat and feel your vocal cords, and then pronounce the word b, d, g. You would see that this is there. So these were the things that were pronounced, that were given by Jacobson Grimm, and we see that these things are also applicable on English. So we can say that English is similar to Germanic language. Yes, the last is the Werner's law. Werner's law, an example of the same process from later English, is that beauty and the beautician, extra or exam. Okay, they also worked on the voiceless fricatives. A voiceless fricative, for example, f, th, h, when not initial and followed by a stressed syllable, becomes a voiced stop, b, d, g. Fine. Then the next thing that they talked about was the accents then shifts to the first syllable. The accent syllables are what? Syllables are one single puff of air while you pronounce single sound. For example, the word pen, I pronounce it with one puff of air, so it has one syllable, pen. And then for another word is copy. It is pronounced with the two puffs of airs, so it has two syllables, copy. And then another word, watch. It is pronounced with the one single breath, with the one single puff of air, so it is one syllable. I hope the concept of syllable is clear. So now stressed syllable, that is stressed. For example, the example that I just gave was copy. We are stressing the first syllable and we are not stressing the second syllable. It becomes copy. The first syllable is stressed and the second is not stressed. Now let's read it again so that it can become clear. A voiceless fricative, when not initial and followed by a stressed syllable, it becomes a voiced stop. The accent then shifts to the first syllable. Accent again is emphasis or the stress. The stress would shift to the first syllable, thus hiding the condition that led to the change in the first place. For example, death and dead. The emphasis, you could see that the emphasis or the accent, the word that is used is accent, death. We are emphasizing on the first syllable, that is death and dead. So the accent or the emphasis is being shifted to the first syllables. Now this is almost the end of the things that we wished to cover today. Today we have looked at the prehistory of English language. We have seen that how different things have contributed towards the development of English. Within the prehistory, actually we were looking and exploring the background and the things. Firstly, we started with a definition of the Proto IndoEuropeans. We discussed that these were the people who lived 6,000 years ago. Then we also talked about the people who lived 3,000 years ago. We also looked at that how Germanic and English has emerged out of Germanic, and how different languages can be compared. We had a new concept of cognates. We tried to identify some cognates, and we have looked at different examples of cognates as well. Then we tried to explore that how not only the cognates but also the speech systems, they are systematically changing into different languages. We have looked at different examples. We also got to know about different definitions of, let's say, the syllables and the fricatives and the plosives. We have seen that how different words are pronounced in different languages. So this is all about today. This is all about our 6th lecture, and I hope that you can easily understand what I have taught you, and wait for the next lecture. Until then, take very good care of yourself. See you again, and Allah Hafiz.